Hey Zach, should I start a freelance business or agency? Let's find out. Hey, this is Zach from W Freelancing. In this video, we're going to talk about the age-old question of whether you should be targeting growing an agency or just growing as a freelancer. This is really important to at least do some thinking about, even if you don't conclusively decide forever right now, because it's going to affect how you approach certain decisions in your business, primarily decisions around scaling your fulfillment or not, and scaling your lead gen or not. Note for you is that this builds on a previous video where I define the difference between a freelancer and an agency. We'll link to it up here, put it in the description, all that stuff. If you don't know the difference yet, check that video out, because this is about helping you decide. The TLDR is, if you're a freelancer, it means you're handling the fulfillment yourself. So every project you book, you're the one doing the work. If you're running an agency, you're paying somebody else to do the work. That's the fundamental difference. When you're a freelancer, you pretty much just own a job. When you are a business, you're like trying to grow the business, you're paying for things with money. So in this video, I'm going to help you decide which one seems like the better fit for you. And we're also going to follow this with a day in the life video where I kind of help you see more what it'd be like to run a successful 6-figure freelance business versus a successful 7-figure agency. So I'll also link to that up here and in this description and all this stuff. For now, we'll focus on the comparison, and I'll talk a little bit about how the work differs and stuff. So there's no right choice here, and I just want to lay that out at first. It's not better to run an agency. It's not better to be a freelancer. They are just different, and it depends on you and your life goals. And that's why I get really annoyed by like overly prescriptive advice, because it really does vary. We have a course in DYF University called Build the Right Business, where I like walk through all the different possible business structures that freelancers and agencies can go for, from like products, productized services, scaled agency, that kind of stuff. And it really, the thing that I have found from talking with a bunch of freelancers in the DYF community is that I can't just give blanket advice. You know, it really does vary. So here's how I would say that you could decide. Is your idea of a dream business, number one, this? So this is the freelance one first. High lifestyle flexibility. I'll just share my screen. Here's my ugly Notion notes for this one so you can look at it. High lifestyle flexibility, earn a low 6-figure income, so like 100 grand a year, whatever. Work very little, like, I don't know, 10, 20 hours a week. Lots of time with friends and family. And when you are working, most of your hours will go to like doing client work, actually doing the fulfillment. And you won't have any passive income. That's freelance. It's worth noting you can build passive income. Like, let's say that you set aside a good amount of money and you put that in the stock market, or you buy real estate, or you start a product-based business. These are things that could create passive or more passive income, but you wouldn't be earning that passive income from your freelancing. Freelancing is just you owning a job, you get paid for the hours you work. You can get more leverage through optimization and stuff, but ultimately it still is time for money. And that's not necessarily a problem because life is time for money. All of the air quotes passive income that exists in the world involves trading time for money because you have to build the machine in the first place. And that takes a long freaking time. The things that are truly passive, like let's say investing in index funds, number one, they're not entirely passive because you still have to buy the things. They still take some time. But typically the more passive something gets, the more it's not that it's passive, it's just that you're changing the risk profile. When you trade time for money, you are exchanging your time for that money. When you go into something more air quotes passive, you are risking your money to create maybe hopefully more money. When you buy an index fund, you are hoping that the money you spend on the index fund is less than what the index fund is worth later. When you buy a rental property, you are hoping that it kicks out more rent than you pay for your mortgage. When you start a product-based business, you hope that the bajillions of dollars you spend building this SaaS product pay you out later with something more than those bajillions of dollars. Like, you're always just exchanging and you're always putting in time in order to get the money, to risk the money to get the money, you know? So there's no really passive thing that I actually know of, except maybe being born into a trust fund. That's the passive income. So if you can find a way to do that, maybe you let me know because I'm on board. But if you are like the rest of us, I think that this idea of passive income and the lack of it being a problem with the freelance business is a little bit misguided. There are a lot of people in the financial independent space that are like employed developers who work at dev jobs to earn multi-$100,000 a year incomes to put that money into index funds so they can retire at 40. I have a friend who does this. He's been doing this for about the same amount of time as I've been running my freelance business. And I often wonder, Did I go the right path? And the answer is yes, because I like what I do. But if the answer was purely so that I could retire young, I don't know. It's not necessarily the right path. And so that's what I would really drive home here, is that growing an agency or a businessy business, like a product-based business, is not necessarily better. It's not even necessarily going to earn you more money. It's just going to be a different life. And ultimately, I think the real decider comes down to this question. Do you want to own a job that has a bit more flexibility than you'd get from a boss, where you get to like decide what clients to take and what clients to turn away, whereas if you're at a job, you don't get to decide that? Or do you want to grow a business? If you want to own a job where you get paid well and have flexibility, go for freelance. If you want to like grow a business, freelancing is a great place to start, but it should probably not be where you end. But fun fact, you don't have to decide right now, you can decide later. So let's talk a bit about an agency or a product-based business. So for an agency, I think there's a much better route into a mid six-figure income or seven-figure income. I'm not saying it's impossible as a freelancer, but earning seven figures as a freelancer would be very, very, very hard. And I frankly would go so far as to say it's nearly impossible if you are a straight up freelancer who's not delegating anything at all to earn seven figures. Or maybe better than impossible versus possible is like sensible. Because if you want to earn seven figures, $1 million a year divided by 2,000 working hours is what, $5,000 an hour? Let me do that math. $500 an hour. So if you're earning that, if you're earning a $500 effective hourly rate and you're working full time, why are you doing everything yourself? You know, like, why are you the one checking your email? Why are you the one doing your lead gen cold outreach? You know, like, why are you doing all that yourself? It doesn't make sense. It's not efficient. You could have somebody doing it way better for way less. And so while it may in theory be possible to be a seven-figure freelancer, I would never recommend that someone try to do that. I'd rather recommend that they try to get more optimization and delegate some stuff and automate some stuff so that they can get more leverage instead of just doing everything themselves. But I digress. If you run an agency / air quotes real business, it's the better path to a multi-six-figure income. I think it's going to be easier to hit like say $500,000 a year as an agency owner than as a freelancer. It'd be very, very hard as a freelancer because you're going to hit bottlenecks with the amount of value that you can deliver for the price, because your pool of clients you can deliver that value to, it shrinks as you charge more. And it's a better route to seven figures in my mind. The biggest thing that I think is a differentiator is that you get to be in the shoes, and I didn't appreciate this when I was freelancing. You get to be in the shoes of like playing the game of business. You don't really get to do that as a freelancer. So when I say playing the game of business, it's almost like building this machine or assembling this puzzle where you like see all these moving parts, these discrete systems that are spinning along, and you see like this, let's think of it, spinning plates, right? You see this plate starting to get wobbly, so you correct that one, touch that one, touch that one. You like keep all these different plates spinning. That's kind of like the game of business. You look at the idea of the funnel, like, are we weak with our lead gen? Remember those three categories: lead gen, sales, fulfillment. Are we weak in fulfillment? Do I need to improve that today? Do I need to marshal resources on the team to improve this thing? Where are we weak? Where do we need to improve? What's the funnel? Where can we optimize? We have a different video that's the day in the life video, so I'll go into more detail of that kind of stuff in that one. Link to it up here in the description. But ultimately, if you're going for that agency route or real business, air quotes, route, most of your time is going to go to like building the business. And you will have to spend longer doing that to get a viable income in your pocket, but you also raise the ceiling of what you can earn. So you're not going to be spending time on a day-to-day basis fulfilling the projects, or at least you won't any longer than you have to. You're always going to be trying to get fulfillment off your plate so that you can continue growing the business. If you have to do the fulfillment yourself, you can't really grow the business very much. And the net result of all this is that you essentially put in more time up front to create more money with less work later. If you do manage to spin the plates and create the systems where you can get leads generated without your time spent, and you can get sales closed without your time spent, and you can get projects fulfilled without your time spent, then that's like pretty passive income. But the reason it's not passive is because you'll always have to keep a plate spinning here and there, but you might hire a manager and you only have to spin the manager plate and the manager spins the staff plates. But there are always plates to spin until you sell your thing. Even if it's 5 minutes every 6 months, there will always be some kind of spinning happening. And it's not passive also because it takes a lot more work to get there. There's so many more problems to solve and milestones to overcome to get there. So is it truly passive if it took 20 times the work to get there? I'll leave that to you to decide. From here, I would say check out the day in the life video, where I go into a bit more detail of what it would look like running a really successful agency versus what it would look like running a successful freelance business. We'll link to that below, up here, wherever. And if you haven't yet gone through the free Charge What You're Worth course that we have, I would recommend you check that out. Basically, in that course, we talk about the offer, so your service offering and the value it produces for your clients and how you position it. And that's really, really important regardless of whether you go freelance or agency. Both of those business models rely on a really, really strong offer in order to be successful. So if you want to check that out, as I said, it's free, 9-day email course, dyf.link/offer. And for now, I'd say go sign up for that, but I trust you already have. Leave a comment below. Which of these sounds cooler to you? Do you think you vibe more with the freelancer model or the agency model or the businessy business model? And join me in the day in the life video, where I'll go a bit more into like first person, what it might feel like, what kinds of work you'd be doing, that kind of thing, to further help you decide.